The finari child stopped dancing mid-step. Her forearms, which had been spinning ribbons of golden silk through the air, fell limp at her sides. The music that filled the festival square died note by note, as if each sound was being swallowed by something hungry and patient. Morrow walked through the crowd without hurry. He had no need to rush. Joy could not escape him. Where his shadow touched, color faded. The bright purple banners hanging from every window turned gray. The sweet smell of festival cakes became ash. Laughter transformed into silence, and silence became something heavier, something that pressed down on the chest and made breathing feel pointless. The finari were a gentle species. They had 4 arms for hugging, large eyes for seeing beauty, and hearts that beat in rhythm with music. Their entire culture was built around celebration. They held festivals for everything, from the first rain of spring to the blooming of night flowers to the simple joy of waking up healthy. Now they stood frozen in their streets, tears running down their faces, unable to remember why they had ever felt happy at all. Morrow paused beside a fountain where moments ago children had been splashing and playing. The water still flowed, but it seemed darker now, reflecting nothing. He looked at his own hands, if they could be called hands. They were made of shadow and old starlight, always shifting, never solid. He felt nothing. He never felt anything. That was the point 300 light years away. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. 12 species sat around a curved table that floated above a holographic map of known space. Red dots marked the worlds Morrow had visited. There were so many red dots now. Brindle, 4 has gone silent, announced High Coordinator Yeneth, her blue scales flickering with distress. That makes 17 worlds in 10 years. We should have destroyed him when we had the chance, growled Admiral Torin of the Vashkai. His species resembled bears if bears were covered in iron-gray fur and stood 3 meters tall. During the siege of Hollow Moon, we had him surrounded and lost 40 ships trying to get close, Yeneth reminded him. His aura extends nearly a kilometer. Anyone who enters it loses the will to fight. They lose the will to do anything. In the corner of the room, a human sat quietly. David Webb was Earth's ambassador to the Council, a position that most species considered unimportant. Humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. They were newcomers still learning the rules of galactic civilization. Has anyone tried talking to him? David asked. Several council members laughed. It was not a kind sound. Ambassador Webb, said Yeneth with exaggerated patience. Hundreds have tried. Diplomats, priests, psychologists, warriors with mental training that took decades to develop. All of them fell into despair before they could speak a single word. Morrow does not negotiate. He does not want anything. He simply destroys joy wherever he finds it. David nodded slowly. But why? Do we know why he does it? Does it matter? Admiral Torin slammed his massive fist on the table. He is a monster. Monsters do not need reasons. The meeting continued, but David stopped listening. He was thinking about something his niece had told him before he left Earth. She was 7 years old, and she had asked him why aliens never smiled in the news videos. Maybe they are sad, she had said. Maybe they need a friend. David smiled at the memory, but the smile faded quickly. His niece Lily was aboard the colony ship Wandering Hope, traveling with her parents to start a new life on a distant world. The ship's route took it through the galactic rim, through Morrow's territory that on his vessel, the eternal silence. Morrow drifted through corridors that had not seen light in centuries. The ship was ancient, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. It had belonged to his people once, before the curse, before everything became emptied. He did not need to sleep, but sometimes he pretended. He would lie in the darkness and try to remember what dreams felt like. He could not that a soft chime drew his attention. His ship's sensors had detected something unusual. A vessel was approaching, small by galactic standards, but larger than most private ships. It was called the Wandering Hope, and it carried 400 human colonists, humans. Morrow searched his ancient memory. Yes, he knew of them. A young species from a harsh world. They had only recently joined the galactic community. He had never harvested from them before. Something else caught his attention. The ship carried 67 children. Children were always the brightest sources of joy. Their happiness was pure and untouched by the complications of adult life. They laughed easily, loved freely, and found wonder in the smallest things. Morrow changed course. The eternal silence turned toward the wandering hope like a predator scenting prey that in 3 days, he would reach them. In 3 days, 400 humans would learn what true despair felt like. They would forget why they had ever left Earth. They would forget why they had ever hoped for anything at all. Morrow settled back into the darkness of his ship and waited. He did not know that among those 67 children, there was one who had never felt fear in her entire life. He did not know that she would ask him a question no one had asked in 10,000 years. He did not know that everything was about to change. Lily Webb pressed her nose against the observation window and watched the stars slide past. Each one was a tiny dot of light, and she had decided to name them all. So far, she had counted 347 stars, and she had named exactly 347 of them. "That one is Sparkle," she told her mother, pointing at a distant blue sun. "And that one is Banana because it looks yellow." Her mother smiled, but did not look up from her tablet. "That is nice, sweetie." Lily did not mind. Her mother was busy with grown-up things, and grown-up things were usually boring. She went back to her naming project. The next star would be called Funny Face because the nebula behind it looked like someone sticking out their tongue. The Wandering Hope was 3 days away from their new home. The colony world was called New Bristol, named after a city back on Earth where someone important had been born. Lily did not care about the name. She cared about the fact that New Bristol had 2 moons and purple grass and animals that looked like a mix between rabbits and small dinosaurs. She wanted a pet one. Her parents said she would have to wait until the scientists confirmed they were safe to touch. Lily thought this was silly. How could something that cute be dangerous? Captain Rosa Delgado walked the corridors of her ship with the calm confidence of someone who had spent 30 years in deep space. She had transported colonists before, scientists before, even soldiers during the brief Keshri border conflict. But this was her first family ship, and she found that she liked it. Children ran through the hallways playing games. Parents gathered in the common areas to share meals and stories. The ship felt alive in a way that military vessels never did. "Captain," her first officer called from the bridge. "We are picking up something on long-range sensors." Rosa frowned and walked to the sensor station. "What kind of something?" "Unknown vessel. It is big, Captain. Very big. And it is changing course to intercept us." Rosa felt a chill run down her spine. They were in neutral space, far from any major trade routes. There was no reason for another ship to be out here, and even less reason for it to be approaching them. "Try to hail them," she ordered. "Already tried." No response. Rosa stared at the sensor reading. The unknown ship was dark, barely visible against the black of space. It moved without any engine signature she recognized, as if it was simply gliding through the void on will alone. "Give me Dr. Okonkwo," she said quietly, "and start preparing the emergency shelters. Just in case." In the medical bay, Dr. Samuel Okonkwo was reviewing patient files. Most were routine matters, the kind of minor problems that came with space travel. Motion sickness, sleep difficulties, a child who had eaten too many sweets and complained of stomach pain. One file, however, was different. Lily Webb, age 7, born with a rare neurological condition that prevented her from experiencing fear. Her brain simply did not process threatening situations the way normal brains did. She could feel happy, sad, angry, excited, and every other emotion. But fear was a stranger to her. Her parents worried constantly. A child without fear was a child who might walk into traffic without looking, pet dangerous animals without hesitation, or climb to deadly heights without a second thought. They had worked hard to teach her caution through logic rather than instinct. But there was something else about Lily that Dr. Okonkwo found fascinating. In his many interviews with her, he had noticed that her emotional baseline was remarkably stable. Where other children experienced highs and lows throughout the day, Lily maintained a steady state of gentle happiness. It was as if her lack of fear had created space for other emotions to flourish without interruption. The intercom crackled. Dr. Okonkwo to the bridge, please. He set down the file and headed for the door, not knowing that in 2 days, that file would become the most important document in galactic history. The eternal silence drew closer. Morrow could feel the joy aboard the colony ship like warmth from a distant fire. It called to him, pulled at the emptiness inside him like gravity, pulling at a falling stone that he did not hurry. He never hurried. The joy would not escape. It never did. On the wandering hope, the lights began to flicker. Lily looked up from her drawing. She had been making a picture of her family, standing on purple grass, with 2 moons overhead. But something felt strange now. The air in the ship felt heavy, like before a thunderstorm back on Earth. Around her, adults started to cry. She did not understand why. A woman dropped her coffee cup and stared at nothing. A man sat down in the middle of the hallway and put his head in his hands. Children began screaming for their parents, their voices filled with a terror that had no source. Lily felt none of it. She only felt curious. She walked toward the observation deck, stepping past crying people and frozen people and people who had simply stopped moving entirely. When she reached the big window, she saw another ship outside. It was black and shaped like nothing she had ever seen, like someone had carved a piece of night sky and taught it to fly. The airlock opened behind her. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of old dust and forgotten places. Something tall and made of shadows stepped onto her ship. Lily turned around and looked up at the creature called Morrow. He was scary to look at, with his shifting darkness and his eyes like dying stars. But Lily Webb had never felt fear in her entire life. "Hello," she said. "Why do you look so sad?" Morrow stopped walking. In 10,000 years of spreading despair across the galaxy, no one had ever asked him that question. No one had ever spoken to him at all, not without collapsing into tears or screaming in terror or simply falling silent as all hope drained from their minds. But this tiny human creature stood before him with her head tilted to one side, looking at him the way she might look at a stray animal, but he tried to push harder. He reached into the well of emptiness inside himself and let it pour outward like black water flooding a room. The lights in the observation deck dimmed. The temperature dropped. Somewhere behind him, an adult crew member who had been crawling toward Lily stopped moving entirely and began to weep. Lily blinked. "The air feels tingly," she said. "Are you doing that?" Morrow did not understand. His power had crushed the spirits of warrior cultures who had trained their whole lives to resist mental attacks. It had broken philosophers who had spent decades building walls of logic around their minds. It had reduced entire planets to silent graveyards of the soul. And this child felt only a tingle. "What are you?" The words came out before he could stop them. His voice sounded like wind moving through dead trees, rough and unused. "I am Lily," she said, as if that explained everything. "What are you?" "I am Morrow." That is a funny name. It sounds like tomorrow, but shorter. She walked closer to him, and he found himself taking a step back. He could not remember the last time he had retreated from anything. "Why are you making everyone cry?" Morrow looked around the observation deck. Through the windows and doors, he could see humans collapsed on the floor, huddled against walls, staring into nothing. His presence had done this to them, as it always did. "I take their joy," he said. "There was no point in lying. I feed on their happiness." Lily frowned. "That is not very nice." "No, it is not." "Then why do you do it?" Morrow was silent for a long moment. No one had asked him that either. Everyone assumed they knew the answer. He was evil. He was a monster. He was a curse upon the galaxy. But none of them had ever asked why. "Because I have none of my own," he finally said. "I cannot feel happiness. I have not felt anything except emptiness for longer than your species has existed." Lily thought about this very seriously. She sat down on the floor and patted the space next to her. "Sit with me. My legs are tired." Morrow stared at her. "You want me to sit with you?" "Yes. I want to understand. My dad says that understanding people is important." Slowly, uncertain in a way he had not been in millennia, Morrow lowered himself to the floor. His shadowy form did not quite touch the surface, hovering just above it like smoke. "You take everyone's happy," Lily said, working through the problem out loud. "So, but does that mean you have lots of happy now? From all the people you took it from?" Morrow opened his mouth to say yes. That was the whole point, was it not? He took joy because he needed it, because the emptiness inside him was so vast and so cold that he would do anything to fill it. But the word would not come till he thought about Brindle, For, and all the other worlds he had visited. He thought about the festivals silenced, the laughter ended, the hope destroyed. He had taken so much from so many, and yet the emptiness inside him remained exactly the same. "No," he whispered, and the realization hit him like a physical blow. "I do not have any of it. I never kept any of it. I only destroyed it. Then why do you take it if you do not get to keep it?" Morrow did not have an answer. For 10,000 years, he had told himself that this was necessary, that he was feeding on the joy of others to survive. But now, sitting on the floor with a human child who looked at him without fear, he understood the truth that he was not feeding. He was simply destroying. He spread his own emptiness like a disease, not because it helped him, but because he could not stand to see others have what he had lost. "I think you forgot how to be happy," Lily said. "That is okay. I can teach you. It is easy." "You cannot teach happiness," Morrow said. "It is not something that can be learned." "Yes, it can. Watch." Lily reached out and took his hand. Morrow flinched. Her small fingers wrapped around his shadowy form, and he waited for her to scream, to pull back, to feel the cold emptiness of his touch. Instead, she held on. "See," she said, "this is step one. You hold hands with a friend. It makes both people feel nice. I am not your friend. I am a monster. You can be both. Monsters can have friends too. I read a book about it." Morrow looked at their joined hands. He could feel something where she touched him, something warm and bright that pushed against the shadows. It was not joy exactly. It was smaller than that, simpler to it was connection. Behind them, the first crew members began to stir. The weight of despair that had crushed them was lifting slightly, not gone but weakened. They saw Lily sitting with a nightmare creature that had boarded their ship, holding its hand and talking to it like an old friend, and no one moved. No one spoke. They just watched. "Come on," Lily said, standing up and pulling Morrow with her. "I want to show you my drawings. I am very good at drawing. I will make one of you." She led him deeper into the ship, and Morrow followed. He did not know why. He did not understand what was happening. But for the first time in 10,000 years, he did not feel entirely empty. 2 weeks passed, and the wandering hope remained frozen in space. Captain Delgado could not risk jumping to faster than light with Morrow aboard. None of the crew could approach him without falling into despair. Only Lily could be near him, and so only Lily went near him. Every morning, she would wake up, eat breakfast, and then find Morrow in whatever dark corner he had chosen for the night. She would take his hand and lead him somewhere new, determined to teach him something he had forgotten 10,000 years ago. The first lesson was bubbles. Lily had found a bottle of bubble solution in the ship's recreation supplies. She stood in the observation deck, dipped the little wand into the solution, and blew. A stream of shimmering bubbles floated into the air, catching the light from distant stars. Morrow watched them with an expression that might have been confusion. "What is the purpose of this?" "There is no purpose," Lily said. "They are just pretty. Watch them float, but they serve no function. They accomplish nothing. That is the whole point. They do not have to accomplish anything. They're just fun." Morrow stared at a bubble as it drifted past his face. It popped against the edge of his shadowy form, and he flinched as if something had struck him. "Try it," Lily said, offering him the wand. His hands were made of darkness and shifting void. He should not have been able to hold a physical object. But somehow, when Lily placed the wand in his grasp, it stayed. He dipped it into the solution and blew. The bubbles that emerged were gray and oddly shaped, as if even soap could not maintain its joy near him. But they were bubbles. "Good job." Lily clapped her hands. "See? You could do fun things." The second lesson was cartoons. Lily made Morrow sit in the recreation room while she played old Earth animations on the big screen. They watched talking animals get into trouble and find their way out. They watched heroes defeat villains with friendship and determination. They watched a very stupid cat chase a very clever mouse for 30 minutes. I do not understand, Morrow said. The cat's failures are being presented as entertainment. Why is suffering amusing? Because nobody actually gets hurt, Lily explained. It is pretend suffering. And the cat is silly. Silly things are funny. Why are silly things funny? Lily thought very hard about this. I do not know, she admitted. They just are. That is what makes them funny. Morrow turned back to the screen. The cat had just run into a wall. He did not laugh, but something in his posture shifted, as if he was trying to understand rather than simply observing. The third lesson was drawing. Lily loved to draw. She had brought 12 boxes of crayons from Earth, and she intended to use every single one. She sat Morrow down at a table and handed him a piece of paper. Draw something, she said. I do not know how. That is okay. I will teach you. First, you think of something you like. Then you draw it. I do not like anything. Lily frowned. Then draw something you remember. Something from before you were sad. Morrow held the crayon awkwardly. For a long moment, he did nothing. Then, slowly, he began to draw. The lines were shaky and uncertain, made by hands that had not created anything in 10 millennia. When he finished, Lily looked at his picture. It showed a figure made of light standing under two suns. The figure was smiling. Who is that? She asked. Me, Morrow said quietly. Before the curse. Lily nodded seriously and picked up a crayon. She drew the same figure of light, but this time she surrounded it with other figures, smaller ones with big smiles and stick arms. Now you have friends, she said, handing it back to him. Morrow looked at the drawing for a very long time. The fourth lesson was jokes. Knock, knock, Lily said. Morrow tilted his head. Why are you saying those words? It is a joke. You have to say who is there. Who is where? No, you say who is there. It is part of the joke. I do not understand. Lily sighed. This was harder than she had expected. Okay, I will just tell you the whole thing. Knock, knock. Who is there? Banana. Banana who? Knock, knock. Who is there? Banana. Banana who? Knock, knock. Who is there? Orange. Orange who? Orange you glad. I did not say banana. She waited, grinning at him expectantly. Morrow's face, if it could be called a face, showed no change. I do not understand why that is amusing. Because you think I'm going to say banana again, but I say orange instead. And orange sounds like are not. Orange you glad. Are not you glad? That is a very poor use of language. That is what makes it funny. Morrow considered this. A joke was amusing because it did not make sense. Happiness came from things that served no purpose. Fun existed simply because it existed. Nothing he had learned in 2 weeks made any logical sense. And yet, as Lily repeated the joke, getting the words slightly wrong and laughing at her own mistakes, Morrow felt something strange in his chest. It was small and weak and unfamiliar. It hurt a little, like a muscle being used for the first time in ages, though he made a sound. It was rough and broken, like grinding stones. It lasted only a second, but it was, without question, a laugh. Lily's eyes went wide. You laughed. Morrow, you laughed. I do not think that counts as laughter. It does. It absolutely does. You did it. You laughed. She jumped up and hugged him, and Morrow stood there in the recreation room of a human colony ship, surrounded by terrible crayon drawings and forgotten bubble wands, feeling something he had not felt in 10,000 years, that he was not happy. Not yet, but he was no longer entirely empty. Morrow fled to his ship that night. He had laughed, actually laughed, and the sensation terrified him more than anything had in 10,000 years. He sealed the airlock behind him and retreated into the deepest darkness of the eternal silence, trying to understand what was happening to him. The memories came uninvited. He remembered his people, the hollow ones. They had not always been hollow. Once, they were beings of pure light and emotion, creatures who existed to spread joy across the universe. They traveled from world to world, sharing happiness like seeds, helping young civilizations find beauty in their existence. Then they found the dying God. It was ancient beyond measure, a being from the first moments of the universe itself. It was trapped in a pocket of collapsed space, slowly fading into nothing. The hollow ones tried to save it. They poured their light and their joy into its failing form, hoping to restore even a fragment of its power. But the god was mad from isolation and pain. In its final moments, it twisted their gift into a curse. Instead of spreading joy, they would spread emptiness. Instead of creating happiness, they would consume it. Instead of filling the universe with light, they would drown it in shadow. One by one, the hollow ones died. Without joy to sustain them, they faded like candles in a storm. Morrow watched his family, his friends, his entire civilization crumble into darkness. He alone survived by learning to feed on the despair of others. But even that was not truly feeding. He gained nothing. He only destroyed 10,000 years of destruction, and he had never once questioned why, until a 7-year-old human child asked him a simple question. Morrow felt something wet on his face. He touched it with shadowy fingers and found that he was crying. The tears were not made of water, but of faint starlight, the last traces of what he had once been. For 3 days, he remained on his ship. He did not answer when Lily came to the airlock and called his name. He could not face her. He could not face what he was becoming. On the wandering hope. Something was wrong with Lily the doctor. Okonkwo noticed it first. She came to breakfast on the 4th day and did not smile. She ate her food in silence, staring at her plate. When her mother asked her what was wrong, she only shrugged. "I feel tired," she said, "and everything looks gray." Her parents exchanged worried glances. Lily never felt tired. Lily saw color in everything. By the end of the day, she had stopped talking entirely. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, her eyes empty of their usual brightness. The crayon drawings she had made covered her walls, but she did not look at them. Doctor Okonkwo ran every test he could think of. Her physical health was normal. Her vital signs were stable. But something was draining out of her, something that could not be measured by machines. "It is Morrow," he told the captain quietly. "She has been exposed to his presence for 2 weeks. Even with her immunity, the prolonged contact is affecting her. She is beginning to feel what he makes everyone feel." "What do we do?" "I do not know. If this continues, she will fall into the same despair as everyone else. And unlike us, she has no defense mechanisms to fall back on. Fear is what triggers our survival instincts. She has never had that." Captain Delgado looked at the screen showing Lily's room. The child who had saved them all, who had done what no warrior or diplomat could do, was fading away on his ship. Morrow felt her light dimming. Tea hit him like a physical blow. He had become attuned to her presence over the past 2 weeks, the one bright spot in his endless darkness. Now that brightness was flickering, weakening, dying. Because of him, he had done this to countless worlds. He had watched civilizations fall into despair and felt nothing. But this was different. This was Lily. This was the child who had held his hand and taught him knock-knock jokes. This was the only being in 10,000 years who had looked at him without fear and asked why he was sad. Morrow moved faster than he had ever moved before. He crossed the void between ships in seconds, tearing through the airlock without bothering to open it. Crew members scattered as he passed, falling into momentary despair. But he did not stop. He found her in the medical bay, lying on a small bed, her eyes half closed. Her mother sat beside her, crying. Her father stood by the window, his fists clenched in helpless anger. Morrow stopped at the door. Everyone in the room looked at him with hatred and fear, but no one tried to stop him. What could they do against the creature that was killing their daughter? "I did this," Morrow said. His voice cracked like old ice breaking. "My presence poisoned her." "Then leave," her father said. "Get away from her. Get away from all of us. That will not save her. The damage is done. My shadow has touched her soul." He moved to her bedside. Lily's eyes opened slightly, and for a moment, he saw a flicker of recognition. "Morrow," she whispered. "You came back. I thought you left because you were mad at me. I could never be mad at you. I feel strange. Everything is heavy. Is this what you feel all the time?" "Yes." "I am sorry. That is very sad." Morrow reached out and touched her forehead. He could feel the emptiness spreading through her, his curse claiming another victim. But this time, it was not a faceless stranger. This time, it was his friend, his only friend. "I will fix this," he said, though he did not know how. "I will save you." He turned and walked out of the medical bay, his shadows darker than ever before. For the first time in 10,000 years, Morrow had something to fight for. Morrow stood in the center of the Wandering Hope's observation deck, surrounded by stars and silence. He had 1 hour, maybe less. Lily's light was fading fast. He could not heal her with the joy he had stolen. That joy was gone, destroyed the moment he touched it. He had nothing to give her, nothing except himself. Deep inside Morrow, buried under 10,000 years of shadow and curse and emptiness, there was still a fragment of what he had once been. A single ember of his original self, the being of light who had traveled the stars, spreading happiness to young worlds. It was tiny, barely a spark, kept alive only by the faintest memory of what joy had felt like, that if he gave that ember to Lily, it might save her. The pure joy of a hollow one, uncorrupted and ancient, might burn away the shadows that were consuming her soul, but that ember was all that remained of who he used to be. Without it, he would be nothing but empty darkness. He would not fade or die. He would simply exist forever as a hollow shell, incapable of even the faint feelings Lily had awakened in him. Morrow thought about the 17 worlds he had destroyed. He thought about the millions of lives he had ruined. He thought about 10,000 years of spreading misery because he was angry at a universe that had taken everything from him. Then he thought about Lily holding his hand and teaching him about bubbles. The choice was not difficult. He returned to the medical bay. Lily's parents had not moved. Her mother held her daughter's hand, singing a soft lullaby. Her father stood guard, as if his presence alone could protect her from the shadows. "I need to be alone with her," Morrow said. "Absolutely not." Her father stepped forward. "You have done enough. I can save her, but only if you let me. Why should we trust you? You are the reason she is dying." Morrow had no answer for that. He stood in silence, shadows swirling around him. Waiting to IT was Lily's mother who spoke. "Let him try." Her husband turned to her in disbelief. "Anna, look at her, David. She is slipping away. If there is any chance at all, we have to take it." David Webb looked at his daughter, then at the monster who had accidentally befriended her. His hands shook with helpless rage. But finally, he nodded. "If you hurt her more," he said quietly, "I will find a way to destroy you. I do not care if it takes the rest of my life." "If I hurt her more," Morrow replied, "I will let you." The parents left the room. Morrow sealed the door behind them. Lily lay still on the bed, her breathing shallow. Her skin had lost its color. Her eyes, usually bright with curiosity and laughter, were dull and empty. Morrow sat beside her, just as she had sat beside him 2 weeks ago. He took her hand, feeling the warmth that still lingered there. "Lily," he said softly, "can you hear me?" Her eyes flickered open. "Morrow, you look different. I'm going to help you now, but I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Remember the joke, the one with the banana and the orange." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "That is a silly joke. I know. It is very silly. Tell it to me. Knock, knock. Who is there?" "Banana." "Banana who?" As she whispered the words, Morrow reached inside himself. He found the ember, the last piece of light, buried so deep that he had almost forgotten it existed. He pulled it free. Pain worse than anything he had experienced in 10,000 years tore through him. His shadows convulsed. His form flickered between solid and nothing. But he did not stop. "Knock, knock," Lily continued, her voice growing weaker. "Who is there?" "Orange." "Orange who?" Morrow pressed the ember against her chest. It sank into her like a drop of light falling into water. He felt himself growing emptier with each passing second, felt the last traces of who he had been draining away. "Orange, you glad?" Lily whispered. "I did not say banana." The ember reached her heart and exploded. Light filled the room. It burst through the walls, through the ship, through space itself. Every person on the Wandering Hope felt a wave of warmth wash over them, like summer sunlight after a long winter. The despair that had haunted them for weeks vanished in an instant. Far across the galaxy, on 17 worlds that had been touched by Morrow's shadow, people suddenly remembered how to smile that on Brindle. 4. A Finari child picked up her ribbons and began to dance. In the medical bay, Lily opened her eyes. They were bright again, brighter than ever before. Color flooded back in her cheeks. She sat up and looked at Morrow. What remained of him that he was barely visible now, a faint outline of shadow without substance. His eyes, once like dying stars, had gone dark. Morrow. Lily reached for him, but her hand passed through his form. What happened? What did you do? I gave you back what I took. His voice was a whisper, fading like an echo. Not just from you, from everyone, but you are disappearing. I know. Tears ran down Lily's face. No, you cannot go. You just learned how to laugh. You're supposed to stay and learn more things. Morrow smiled. It was a real smile, the first genuine expression of happiness in 10,000 years. You taught me something more important than laughing. You taught me that joy is not something to be taken. It is something to be given. His form began to dissolve into motes of gentle light, drifting through the air like fireflies. Thank you, little teacher. The last of him scattered across the room, settling on the walls, the floor, Lily's hair. One mote landed on her chest, directly over her heart, and sank inside. The door opened. Her parents rushed in and found Lily sitting alone, crying and smiling at the same time. 10 years later, a young woman stood on the bridge of a diplomatic vessel. She wore the uniform of the Galactic Council's First Contact Division. Around her neck hung a small pendant made from crystal that had formed in the place where Morrow disappeared. Her name was Lily Webb, and she had become the galaxy's most successful ambassador to hostile and isolated species. Where others saw monsters, she saw beings in pain. Where others saw enemies, she saw potential friends. The crew watched nervously as their ship approached a massive structure in the void between galaxies. Something lived there, something that had destroyed every vessel that came near. The Council had sent fleets against it. All had failed. Lily walked to the airlock alone. Ambassador Webb, the captain called. Are you sure about this? Lily looked back and smiled. The pendant around her neck glowed faintly in the darkness. I am, she said. Someone taught me that monsters can have friends too. She stepped through the airlock and walked toward the waiting darkness. Hello, she said. Why do you look so sad?